All right. Hello, everyone. This is Rangadad. This is what I'm seeing in the market at the moment, not financial advice, all that kind of thing. Interesting day in the markets. Very obviously big downside day. It's potentially going to find some support today. As I said in Discord the last night before I went to bed, I would expect it to come back down into potentially 65 at the bottom, I would say. If we clear below 64K, then I would actually expect a bit more downside. The only caveat to that is you've got the daily 50 and 20 pretty close together at that point, or just below that point. So maybe a wick down into that 63.5, but it would have to do it pretty quickly because those are both going to come up relatively quickly. The reason why I said 65, 65.5, for one, it was, if we come into the 15-minute, there was the 15-minute 800 EMA there, which I think is actually, oh no, we're below that now. So that was a pretty good level there, but the bottom of this wick here was at 65,700 as well. So somewhere in this region was looking like a good retrace. The issue is when you look at it from this perspective, that looks like the whole thing's rolling over. Now, in saying that, would be a pretty good spot for a higher low. Okay. And that particular higher low would potentially get us somewhere around here for a higher low, would get us up to about that 70K mark, which was a reasonable sort of interim target that we had, top of the range sort of thing. I'd like to see a breakout above that, obviously. And essentially we have this horizontal support as well. That level, just because price came into it and did actually reject over a number of days. So that's sitting at just above 65K, and it's got some confluence through here as well. Like each time it hits that, it does seem to either find support or find a bit of resistance, struggles to sort of break through it. So, but it's only in more recent times, a little bit here as well, but over here it's not as strong. A little bit there, I guess. If you come down to the 4 hourly, it's a bit more obvious. A couple more touches on it. In through here, reasonable level for support, somewhere in this region, down to potentially a little bit lower. Horizontal supports tend to be better than trend lines, so that was why I was sort of suggesting that level there. The 4 hour 800 EMA is also in a similar level. Looks like we're actually bouncing off the 4 hour 50, or close to it anyway. I'd be surprised if we didn't tap into this 800 EMA, but it hasn't necessarily been respecting EMAs as much lately. A few bounces off it, but it's been pushing through and then rejecting back quite a bit, which has been screwing us up. The 5-minute bot, frustrating as hell. Last night, went to bed, was feeling pretty good about this trade here, thinking, yeah, okay, this should push down because there's not much. Like there was that these candles here. But once we cleared that, should have been a pretty clear run. There's not much to the left down into this wick here, which would have seen us at least TP2. But Bitcoin did what it seems to have been doing in the last 3-4 weeks, and it just completely fucked us. A 2% move to the upside to just stop us out on that previous fucking candle, and then rip back down in our direction. That's so freaking frustrating, eh? But as I said to some people yesterday, Bitcoin is trading differently. It is trading more like SPY or the Nasdaq at the moment in terms of the moves that it takes, the speed of the moves on volume, and then the reversals and stuff like that. It is likely due to just Wall Street being more interested in it lately. It's trading more like a Wall Street ticker, which I'm gonna probably have to change this strategy completely, which is fucking annoying because it was a good strategy when it wasn't doing this. But it's a real battle on at the moment between, the the bulls and the bears. Like, just a massive fight. Lots of buying volume at the bottom here. This should stop out reasonably, like in profit still, this trade. It'll somewhat make up for that last one, but I think that's probably the bottom there. I did have a trade on coin margined Bitcoin versus USD, and it took me ages to realize profit on that one. I sort of kept adding to it on the way up, knowing that there'd be a retrace at some stage, just making sure my liquidation point was well above the top that I thought it was going to hit, like the top of the channel, and then just started reducing the position on the way down, and I've taken full profit at that point there. So that one did actually end up working out all right, but I was a bit nervous about it when we were up around 68k, that's for sure. Look at this. And one thing I have noticed is, the US session has been more active lately. All the dumping and things like that down around this level through this area here, that was all pretty much Asian sessions. There wasn't a hell of a lot of action from the US sessions at all. So these big spikes here, that's all during the Asian trading session, and then overnight you're sort of looking at a little bit of action from the US, but typically just a big candle, and that's about it. So the market is shifting, and it's shifting pretty quickly in either direction. So even that was well before the US session. That's more Asia session. Asia Europe crossover session. That there was US session, but apart from that, most of it has been Asia all through this dump. That there was a bit of US. That there was mainly sort of Europe. That there was Asia. This bit here was Europe and US. So it's really flip-flopping around. Asia has not been interested as much, it would seem, in this this drop. It's mainly been US market that's pushing down. That was a little bit of Europe that kicked that off, though. Europe and Asia. Anyway, that's what does that mean? The volume that's coming through now in the US session, it looks like the US is back interested in it again. And yeah, it's just the way this thing's moving around, these big pump and dumps, that's looking more and more like NASDAQ and SPY to me on the shorter time frames, which just means I'm going to have to try and change this. This take profit here was actually in this candle. It's just the way the indicator's set up at the moment. What the hell is that? Oh, yeah. Wow. That was this message here. 9,100 ETH worth 31 million was transferred from Coinbase into an unknown wallet. That is interesting thing. So ETH has actually kicked off ETF. That's interesting. Let's go early. Looks like it actually sold off kind of into the ETF, and now it's actually picked back up. Lots of open interest. It's been swiped in both directions. Don't think this has made its mind up yet. I've actually, to those that are sort of using this and following this assessment technique, I've actually been using the Binance ticker for this lately, just because the depth of or the order book profile is actually a lot deeper. Gives you a bit of a better picture, along with the large order heat map. And yesterday it was for Bitcoin. When we started to drop, it was showing some pretty significant orders to the downside and bugger all above it. It was looking pretty with that 68,500 on the dot. Yeah, it after this retrace to the upside, it looked pretty ominous just because there was so many orders in here, and the order book profile didn't have a lot of this sort of stuff to the upside. It would have taken a hell of a lot of effort to actually get up and take some of these bigger orders up here, which you're only talking a couple of hundred BTC, whereas there was thousands of BTC down here to come in and take. So yeah, sorry I didn't look at that yesterday in the live, but did post about it in the Origin Discord. So we've still got a fair chunk of liquidity to the downside here. Looking at the order book on Binance, there's a fair bit here as well, around that 66,600. So if we do find a good base here, which it's not as strong as I thought it might be on the 15-minute, you know, if we do come back up, expect it to sort of come back up into the 66.7-ish, which is also that 200 EMA, and then potentially come back down to the downside. So that would bring the 64,400 into play. Is it possible? Yeah, it's just use this to try and give you a gauge of how strong a move might actually be. Wow, okay, 9,000 ETH came out of Coinbase, 13,000 went into Coinbase, which typically you got to be careful of selling action if that's the case. Could drive price down. Yeah, so still quite a bit of orders in here for it to come into. And if you compare this to the bybit, where is it? No. Yeah, it had some pretty massive orders too. That's $30 million Bitcoin order that it's just swallowed up. There is more in here, 160. I'm a little bit frustrated that this blocks your actual mouse when it pops up. They should move this more to the side. Or have it just come up down in the corner here. Because, yeah, it's frustrating. You got to kind of move it to the left as you're doing it. So, yeah, lots of Bitcoin in there. These are buy orders, limit orders. So, 224. That at 64,700. So there's definitely a chance we could come down further. You can see here this order book is what I was talking about. That doesn't really tell me a lot, and I can't figure out how to make that better. It just seems to work better on Binance. I think the two of them combined, yeah, that's shit. Now that I've seen it on Binance, I can't look at the Bybit one anymore. Yeah, compare those two. It's these sort of areas you want to look at in confluence with the large orders. It's kind of the same thing in a way, but it just helps me visualize this. You don't get any feedback in terms of what these actual volumes are. It's all relative. So yeah, potential move back up into here before moving down further, kind of like what it did overnight there, but you know, that's just algos are really quite obviously moving this market. I think I don't know if I mentioned it the other day, but this move here. There is no way that someone's sitting there with their finger on a button making moves like this and shifting again based on news events. Like that was I think that from memory, that was the Trump shooting. That's just a stupid amount of volume. It's very much an algo doing that. Highly likely, anyway. But that's what we've got to deal with these days. Me, for that to finish. That was super frustrating. Volume tapering off here down at the bottom. I don't expect us to go much lower than this. Another 6,000 ETH was just transferred to Coinbase from an unknown wallet. So yeah, it might come back down and tickle this again, but that's pretty significant stopping volume as well. I mean, I'm kind of in no man's land in terms of the volume profile. which would suggest that's 64, 600-ish again. So this trade might actually hit TP3, which would be nice. If we look back here at the vectors, we're sort of pretty well got to clear this level here, and then there shouldn't be much liquidity trapped until we get down into here. So that's again at that low 64 mark, and that's kind of why I also suggested to the Discord that if we hold a daily close below 64, I would be concerned that it is actually a bull trap, this move up. So I'd be watching what the overall market's doing quite closely as well. Again, Bitcoin is going to be considered a risk-on asset at the moment. Once it sort of starts to settle down a bit, and I think the market will go risk-on again in the next month or so, but right now it's shifting around as we've discussed in the last few days. Those 6,500 ETH just came out of Coinbase. Wow. Okay, let's go into general market. Go off 4 hour. 4 hours definitely suggesting we could get down to the low 65 at least. I think that's about it that I'm seeing on Bitcoin at the moment. We have crossed the signal line on the stochastic momentum. And it looks like we're getting a dump candle here, which typically these signals don't necessarily mark the bottom or mark continuation. It's just an interest that there has been a lot of selling volume in that candle. I don't really pay too much attention to them on this indicator. But in general, this indicator is still kind of upside biased, I guess, with these clouds. It looks like it could turn pretty soon, though. So whether we get a bigger turn, we'll have to wait and see. Sort of the mid-band of the Gaussian channel is going to be an interesting point, as are these moving averages. But as I said, if we close below 64, that's the bottom of these candles without the wicks, and that I think could be pretty critical. Like, to come all the way back down into that level and not follow through would be kind of surprising. So we'll just have to sort of suck it and see a little bit. Don't worry too much about that. Don't know why that was on that angle. If we go from the bodies of the candles, it's nothing really there giving us much edge. But I think that's probably a good trend line to have on your charts when we do come back up. It may want to break above that, retest, and then head higher. Okay, Nasdaq kind of down. Yeah, this is an interesting bounce off that 20 EMA on the daily. That's suggesting more downside, which we talked about yesterday. So through these, it's kind of turning up, but given that's a down day there on the S&P 500, I'd be surprised if that bounces there, to be honest. I would have thought that's going to come through and want to touch this 54.36, 54.40 sort of level. Yeah, it's still these brown bars kind of, you know, you want to start seeing some blue bars before you get too excited about the S&P 500, I would think. Kind of a distribution day though. It's, you know, percentage move isn't huge. Nvidia is kind of doing the same thing, rejecting that 20-day EMA. Yes. Equal weight, bit of an inside day there. Again, it's still bearish, I would say. Looks like we are just crossing into the, or crossing out of the bullish control zone on the RSP as well. It really needs to find support here. Like this region here, if it doesn't, like if we get back below this wick, it's coming back down. And I would suspect that the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq could be doing the same thing. IWM, interesting bounce level. You know, I pointed out yesterday that was a fairly bullish candle, but I kind of expected it to come back more. It's interesting. I will be looking for a rejection off this level for sure. Just because that was the level that we found as resistance all the way through. 229-ish, 2230-ish is probably going to be a resistance as well. Like it might struggle to get through there, but you know, 23.3 is probably my big level there. If we break that, you're obviously expecting at least 243. If we reject off 243, that'll be a gigantic double top. And I'd be a little bit concerned. So, you know, look for this to potentially, it's a pretty nasty candle on the weekly, but interesting. So yeah, if we reject off this level here, 245-ish, it's going to be a pretty big double top. How long do you think that would take? We said sort of 14 bars, say 5 months. That would bring us into the end of the year, 20 bars. And if we're rejecting close to that level, even a little bit above that level in 5 months, that's around, well, it's basically Christmas. That will align quite well with January as being a potential start of the big downturn. That would concern me. I'd be inclined to be calling a top and potentially going into quite a big bear market on everything. As we said yesterday, Fibo Swanee is basically looking at January as the top as well. I do enjoy his analysis. He's amazingly accurate a lot of the time. And yeah, that would be massive. And I'd be looking for the Russell to kind of call the recession as well, given that it's 2,000 of the smaller. It's 2,000 businesses within the US. A lot of banks and things like that in there, and a lot of zombie companies as well. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to keep in the back of your head. I'll be looking out for that. Industrials is bouncing off the top of that Gaussian channel, which is interesting. XLY, XLP is kind of doing the same thing as the S&P 500. Dow Jones Gold, again, we're looking for a break sort of below this level, I think. 1625 would signal a downside move on the general market. Dixie is retesting that 200 EMA on the daily again. What you kind of want to see, or what I'm kind of expecting to see, is the Federal Reserve to announce interest rate cuts in the US. The market goes up significantly over a few months, and then something breaks, or something's already broken, but it comes to light and shit hits the fan, and then we dump off and it all goes to turd. And that would basically, like, the interest rates decreasing would mean the Dixie would come down. It's just not as profitable to be in when interest rates are coming down. So that would lead stocks to go higher, at least to start with. And then when stocks top, interest will come back into the dollar as a safe haven. If not Bitcoin, it'd be fantastic if it comes into Bitcoin. That would change where I think the top's going to be, but I don't, at least not at this point in time. Treasuries coming down a bit. High yield bonds is interesting. I think this one we did like the look of the 800 EMA. Little bit of support. Nah, not really. Don't worry too much about that. Oh, that's right. We're saying it'll probably come up into 79. Yeah. I mean, it's a suppressed day like the rest of the market, but nothing to be too worried about. What's the skew doing? Skew is freaking. Skew's suggesting that there is more downside on the market to come. Definitely. Just in this retrace. Like that's a big move on the skew to the downside today. So look out for retrace. Copper is suggesting the same thing. Copper just broke the 200. Wow. Can it find support around this level here, around 4.1? 4.06 would be a good level as well. I would expect to bounce at 4.06-ish. Just you don't get massive moves down like this without at least a little bit of a dead cat bounce. Your bounce level would probably be up to the 4.33. That will be interesting at that point. We could get a run up if the market does go up, as we're suggesting. But yeah, for the time being, copper is down. And gold is finding a bounce off the 20-day moving average. That's good. That's a good retrace. I think we did a fib on that the other day. Okay, it's bounced off the 0.5 fib. That's a great level for a bounce. Not a bad time to get into gold. Just of interest to liquidity, global liquidity from the Feds is dropping off a little bit. It's kind of flat. Not suggesting any major sell-offs, but we haven't really had the sell-off in the last drop from liquidity either. So silver looks like it's finding support, similar to gold. If gold runs, silver will probably follow at the moment. Interesting bounce off that level, like literally that wick, which is this 22.45-ish level as well. I wouldn't have picked that as a very strong support level, but it's also wicked down to the bottom of the Gaussian channel. So, see. Oh, I think that was 100 EMA as well. Okay. Aussie dollar, US dollar. Expect a bounce here. So if you want to change your Aussie dollars into US dollars, now's not the time. It might be a good time to change US dollars into Aussie dollars, though. We probably won't see these levels for a little bit. That kind of sucks, actually. The Japanese are trying to push things back up. Probably made easier by the fact the US dollar isn't looking super strong at the moment. But yeah, they're selling lots of bonds. It's only a matter of time before they run out. I think China's already run out. Money supply is ticking up a little bit. Still, the M2 supply is still heading up, which is not great. Oh, look at this bounce. That's an almost textbook breakout, retrace. This is suggesting that people are going to start moving into safety. Interest rates are likely to come down. Just looking at this, it's certainly being priced into the market at the moment. But the fact that 10 years not moving as much as the 2-year means we're starting to get close to this we're getting closer to uninversion, and that breakdown there is pretty significant. I'm going to try, I might be doing this incorrectly, but Fiboswani would probably measure that distance there. Look at the biggest retrace from that that line and put it at the breakout. So that would bring us back down into 0.97, which would be uninversion. I don't think we get there particularly soon, but this is a textbook retrace of a trend line break. So expect that to keep coming down, which is suggesting that we will get interest rate cuts soon. Don't think it'll be this month, but potentially August or September anyway. Percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average has actually bounced a little bit, suggesting they've had a little bit more rotation into some of the underperforming stocks. Yeah, it's a fair bit of movement on Bitcoin, Ethereum. Oil still going down. So yeah, it didn't really do what I thought it would do, to be honest, but looks like it may have found a bit of support at this level here, which I wouldn't have said was a strong level anyway. I guess there's a few wicks into that level, 76.87. I'd kind of expect oil to keep coming down, to be honest. It's in the bearish control zone on the stochastic momentum. Everything's pointing down at the moment, but it is right at the bottom of that Gaussian channel as well, so just be careful of that. Mag 7 up slightly. Bit of an indecision candle right around that 20 EMA. So overall it's looking like the 20 EMA on the daily is going to be resistance for the Nasdaq, the Qs, pretty much everything. that is at that point at the moment. Let's have a look at ETH. ETH's had a busy day. It's definitely had some volume come through. It's really struggling to break out of this little zone that it's in, though. Very high volume traded area. Obviously hasn't got back above that yet. If we can't push above that on this much volume, it's going to be interesting. Might just go into the shorter timeframes on ETH. Have a quick look. Yeah, it's interesting holding the bottom of this range. I think for ETH to really push higher, one, I think we need more retail adoption in the market, which we're not seeing retail money really come in any big way at the moment. But we need to break above that 35.50, I think, with volume, potentially with a retest. If we do that, then I'd be reasonably excited about ETH. But at the moment, like your target then, if you break that 35, I reckon ETH's target would easily be that 3,800 mark. Probably going to find a bit of resistance around there because of this big trend line. But if we also break out of this channel here as well, let's just go to the daily. A pretty big channel we got going on. Break out of that to the upside, and you're probably looking at something around 5,000, which would be back up to your all-time highs. And we'd probably be looking at a pretty decent market overall, which if we did the same analysis we did on Bitcoin, where we sort of did the 3-leg analysis, let's go best case for ETH, I would expect. And magnet can be a pain in the ass. We go from the low. About 6,100, to be honest, which isn't massive, but I mean, from the lows, it's still, 5x, which if you've got big money in the house, would not surprise me. Let's get rid of that. Yeah. ETH, I'm kind of undecided with ETH at the moment. I don't really hold a lot of it anyway. It's really a utility token for me. I actually use it to buy NFTs and pay gas on other transactions and stuff like that. It's not something I'm super interested in holding long term. I think there's better value out there. Been going nearly 45 minutes now, but Sol has hit our target basically. That's what was our target again? Can't remember if I went off the body or not. Yeah, that's pretty much our target. Stopped a little bit short. That's why you always take profit before the target that you're looking at. But this is still looking pretty strong. If Bitcoin does have another down day, Sol might come back into the top of this Gaussian channel, but it's also at a pretty decent level there, where it's at the moment, which is around that 172. But yeah, if Bitcoin goes bullish again, Sol's probably going to break out and at least get back up to that. I would expect it to actually break through the all-time high, to be honest. Was that an all-time? No, it wasn't an all-time high. Obviously, in a proper bull run, I do expect Sol to get back above that 250. All right. That'll probably do me, I think. Matic is still holding. Matic has not dropped as much as Bitcoin necessarily. Matic is kind of looking like it's found its bottom, but wait and see. If you think Matic's going to be good in the next bull run, then it's currently a 6x off its all-time high. I think it'll get some interest, but it's certainly not flavor of the month. Just want to do Cadena, sorry. Yeah, wow. It's a pretty strong bottom on that one too. This was supposed to be like a Bitcoin and Ethereum combined memory. It's probably an interesting level. Just 60x or so to its all-time high. Whether it does that or not, it's hard to tell at this time, but it looks like it's actually almost a triple bottom at this level here. So that'll be one I might start to just put a little bit into that one. See if we can't get a 60x out of it. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting bull market just based on where some of these altcoins are at from the last cycle. Just be careful because not all of them are going to go back to all-time highs. It's going to be very much about adoption, I think, the next run, which is why I'm sort of more looking at things like DOT. I think it's got potential just because of the adoption narrative. XRP maybe, but XRP is basically a stable coin at the moment. Has been for a while. But IMX and IMX has been pretty solid, hey, like don't know that that's its all-time high. That's a, is that 100x on the bottom to its all-time high? No, it's only 10x, isn't it? 11x. So yeah, it's got probably a 2x roughly to its all-time high. But this here as a gaming narrative coin, I know they've been signing on heaps of games to actually use their blockchain as underlying sort of tech. I do like that one. Quant had a pretty good narrative as well in the last run and is holding up pretty well. That's another one that I'll be looking at. Well, yeah, that one's holding up pretty well as well. YDX. Just trading that on the way down. Not very well by look at those levels, but yeah, there's some interesting plays. Ape is looking like turds at the moment. I think it actually opened on Binance, so it's back below the levels of that it opened at. Huh. I mean, this could be an interesting play. You think about that board ape narrative. If the board ape narrative comes back, holy shit, that's like a 40x to all-time highs. But I haven't seen or heard much about ape recently. Ada, fuck Ada. Yeah. I don't know anyone that's building on Ada. Anyway, this is a bit of a longer video, just looking at some extra shit, but hopefully it's useful for you guys. Certainly useful for me. That's what I'm doing it for. But yeah, it looks like we are finding a little bit of support going into the end of the daily candle here. But just be careful of the swings to the low. Typically on a daily candle where you get a decent price reversal, you will typically swing to the low and then come back up. So hopefully it doesn't enter another short anytime soon, unless we get that dump down to 64k. Even then, I don't think I would want to open a short, to be honest. I'm more interested at the moment in looking for longs, particularly around this level. Got a bit of volume through here though, forming a little bit of interest. All right, that'll do. I'll catch you later.